Yes, I have lost weight, Kenny. Thank you for mentioning that.
Why are you
You
trying to
look,
lose weight, or are you trying to?
you look damn good. Let me just tell you that.
So I'm not actually trying to, but it's interesting. So I actually was reading up on this. You guys know I lift weights, and I'm very, very muscular. And I just want to get the eye rolls out. Go ahead. Okay. So my brother was a power lifter. He actually was winning medals when he was 16, 17 years old. He held the Illinois State bench press record for a while for amateurs. And so I always lifted weights with him. And we always had like these weightlifting magazines and muscles. And there was a guy named, I'm going to get his name wrong, but it was like Vince Gianda. And he never won anything, but he was always called upon by guys like Arnold and Lou Ferrigno and Franco Colombo to cut body fat before shows. And I read that his whole thing was steak, butter, and eggs 4 days a week, one cheat day, and then back to steak, butter, and eggs, period.
Right.
That was two meals a day and nothing else. So I said to my wife, I go, this sounds crazy, but it also sounds delicious. And I didn't expect it. My wife used to be not only a vegan, but she was briefly a raw vegan.
I'm not sure what a raw vegan is.
Well, you just don't cook anything, and it's all fucking plants and nuts.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. That was before I knew her. That would have never flown in my house. So I was just talking about it, and she goes, let's try it. I said, the hell with it. Okay, let's try it. Fine. So I've literally eaten nothing except for occasional cheat days, but beef, butter, salt, eggs, coffee, and water. Now, my occasional cheat days involve bourbon, so it usually takes me right out of ketosis. But it's literally, I've dropped weight much easier than I ever have in the past, and I actually enjoy the meals.
Wait, so you're doing the keto diet? You've eliminated all that stuff?
It's different than that because I'm not having any dairy. Like I'm not having any milk. I'm not having any cheese. I literally, Kenny, Jimmy, I just make a steak for lunch. I make a steak for dinner. If I'm still hungry, I make 4 or 5 scrambled eggs and I eat it with the steak. And that's it.
That's it?
That's it.
No pasta, no meatballs, none of that?
Now, in fairness to me and my heritage, I do have I went back to a wedding in Chicago, right? They had penne with vodka sauce. They had about 7 servings of it, right? Yeah. But the minute I get back home, what I do is I restrict myself to those things when I'm home.
Yeah, okay.
We go out to dinner. If there's an opportunity to stick with it, great. If not, I don't. Took my father-in-law out for his birthday yesterday. He had a key lime tart with a fucking candle in it. I ate the tart. I ate most of the tart. They barely touched it. So, but that's what I do at home. And I'm finding different ways to do it. You know, in this, everybody who knows who Kenny is, right, knows that other than his financial prowess, he's an unbelievable Italian chef, right?
Yeah.
I'm not. Yeah. I know like 5 things. Yeah. So I was that kid who was like, Mom, make me something. I literally got a chuck roast the other day and I seared it and I threw it in the slow cooker, put about a stick of butter in there and a little bit of beef broth. And about 9 hours later, I had the best pot roast of my life. You know, a ton of salt and pepper in there, and that's it. And those are the things I've been eating. And it's really easy to keep the weight off.
And how much weight have you lost?
About 12 pounds so far.
Wow. Good for you. And you're still working out.
As heavy as I've been in my life, that's like throwing a lawn chair off the Queen Mary. But I lose it in my face first.
Yeah, I could see it in your face. That's why I asked you.
Yeah.
I could see it in your face.
Are we going to ever talk about anything like that?
I don't know what the hell for. I like this subject.
No, me too. When the FDA came out in like the late 70s and said eggs were no good for you, I knew then to not trust them. And I started eating 4 eggs a day. And I have since I was about 12 years old. And my cholesterol is perfect. I still eat 4 or 5 eggs a day.
And in all kidding aside, Jimmy and I have been friends for a long time. But I learned a lot more about him on Twitter than I did ever in person.
Yeah.
And literally, he's been saying this kind of shit for years. That beef's not bad for you. Steak's not bad for you. And look at him. I mean, he's got no body fat.
No, I think he looks great.
Yeah. I mean,
by the way, one last little thing about that is I have this weakness for my daughters. When they ask me to do something, I just say yes and don't think about it. About 3 months ago, my damn daughter number 2 said, hey, do you want to do a triathlon in Lake Geneva? And I just was like, yes. And now I'm terrified. It's coming up this Saturday. I've also lost 5 pounds, and I have no 5 pounds to lose. I feel like I could be knocked away by the wind. So I'm not very happy.
What event are you the weakest on a triathlon, Jim?
Swimming, by far.
Swimming?
Yeah,
course,
I'm
'cause
actually
it
a good
involves strength.
runner.
So
Yeah,
what's
because
the
of our strength.
so what is it a mile? How far is the swim?
So it's standard Olympic triathlon, which is like 0.93 a mile swim, like a 25-mile bike, and a 6.2-mile run. I'll
Wow.
finish it. The question is just how uncomfortable will I be? Then I'm going to my 40th high school reunion that night, so maybe I'll be tired and cranky.
Oh, you'll be
You and
tired and
Aaron
cranky.
Rodgers with the torn Achilles, you'll be pulling up in there.
Was
Yeah.
that unbelievable or not? I couldn't believe what I was
Can you
watching. God.
can you imagine? Oh,
Are
Are you a
you
shit.
Jets
Jets,
fan or
Kenny,
a
or no?
Giants fan, Kenny? What are you?
Patriots, really, because I'm a Bostonian, right?
Okay.
Oh, right. Good for
Fair
you.
enough.
Yeah. Okay, I'm heard that some of these people tune in actually to hear fucking financial talk. So let's get to it. Welcome to the Futures Edge podcast. I'm Jim Uriel, as always. Bob Iacchino, the brains behind the operation, executive producer, co-host. Today we have one of our friends, as you probably figured out already, managing partner of Case Capital, Kenny Pocari. I sometimes worry when the three of us are on, the hands are going to go. It's going to be a lot of Italian. And Bob, we have so many damn Italians on the show.
So it's funny, like I book most of the guests. Jimmy recommends a lot of them, and he does the pre-reach out and stuff like that. And then I book them, and it is just amazing how between our networks, the people we've gotten along with end up having a vowel at the end of their name 8 times out of 10.
Well, you know, it's so funny because I do Scott Celery, right? On Wednesdays.
Yeah.
Typically I do it on Wednesdays. And so, you know, when he talks, Suzanne starts him off. What are you talking about today? Who you talking? So he said, I'm talking to Kenny Pocari. I'm talking to Bobby Iacchino. Then I'm talking to Jim Uriel. You know, they all end in vowels, right? And so he says to Suzanne, he goes, do you notice anything in those names? Which is so funny, right? Because it's so true.
Shit. No doubt about it. Okay, let's get to a couple things. Tomorrow, we are recording on the eve of CPI, but you guys won't see this until CPI is already out. But we have to cover it anyway because it's the big elephant in the room. I think it's a monumental number. I think, we're not supposed to look at the headline number at all. That core is supposed to come in at 4.3. What are your thoughts pre-CPI, Ken?
So I think that the number is going to be hotter. And I think the Fed's going to make a mistake by pausing in September because, you know, we were in a place where CPI was declining. Now it's going up. We know it's going up. The estimates show it's going up. But yet they're sitting there going, okay, well, I think this is the time to pause. That which makes zero sense to me. So what I'm afraid of is that the expectation is supposed to be 3.6 on the top line year over year, plus 0.6% month over month, right? Which is up over the prior month. But the fear is that it's going to be even hotter than that. And if it's going to be hotter than that, then how is the Fed going to turn around now after they've told everybody we're pausing and go, oh shit, you know, this is even hotter than we thought. How are we going to take back that narrative and suddenly talk about maybe the need to have to raise rates again? And that's what I'm afraid of. Now, do I put a large percentage going to be greater than 3.6? If it's greater than 3.6, we all have a problem because then they've lost control of it, right? If it comes in at 3.6, right where they estimate, then what I think the market does, I think it churns, but I think it churns in place. I don't think it goes up or down very much, but I think it just churns. If it comes in hotter, I think the market backs off. And if it comes in weaker at 3.4 or 3.3, then I actually think that the market, you know, will push higher because then they'll say, oh, look, we got it right.
Okay,
I'm in the camp, though, they're going to get it wrong.
So it's going to bust us out of our range, it sounds like you think, either way.
That's right. One way or the other. Okay. Well, unless it comes right in online, then I think we're stuck there.
Okay, so Bobby, I'm going to ask Kenny, and I want you to answer this too, okay? So let's say it comes in hotter than expected. Let's say all of a sudden the market starts pricing in 50% chance of a hike in September, which I know it's probably not going to happen. But then it starts to price in for sure a hike in November.
Yeah.
What happens to the long end? Do we invert the curve further because it feels like the Fed's going to all of a sudden be like, shit, we got to roll, and they're going to overcorrect? What do you think, Kenny?
I do think they're going to overcorrect, but I think they have to overcorrect. You know, the pendulum swings both ways. I think they left it way too long on the left side. Now they got to overcorrect on the right side, especially now that we see it. They know that it's going to start to raise again. We've all been talking about how inflation is now ticking up. The expectations tick up. So why they're going, oh yeah, it's great. We're not going to raise rates anymore. It makes zero sense to me.
I think Kenny's right, especially about the inflation story. And I think that's theater of the obvious, as Kenny stated. I mean, we're seeing inflation press higher. Since the end of May, crude oil's up almost 31%, the WTI contract.
Yeah.
And we all know that whether, as Art Hogan pointed out to us, right, the actual input from energy is small in the consumer's budget. But up here, it's massive, right?
Right.
And what it does is it's likely, in my opinion, to start to slow the consumer. They tell us to ignore the headline, which is what they do, but the
Right.
consumer doesn't ignore the headline. So the interesting part about this, to Kenny's point, in my view, is I don't know if they're making a mistake by pausing in September, but I think they're making a mistake by implying that they're done, which is what they're starting to do.
That's right. Nick Timrose ran with that article on Sunday at wallstreetjournal.com. And, Nick Timrose is like Deep Throat, right? They go to him to float the idea. He writes this story. You'll know it's true when Goldman comes out with the exclusive going, oh, look, the Fed's going to stop. They're all done. That's when you know that it's true, because they go to Nick first to float it. And then when they decide, they let Goldman, kind of put it out there. If Goldman doesn't come out with a story like that, then I think it's still kind of, in discussion.
So let's say if it comes in somewhat hot, guys like, there's a guy who sends me his newsletter. I think he's very good. I think his name is like Steve Anastasio or something. Do you know he's an economist? You guys ever heard of that guy?
No.
I might pronounce his name wrong. I should get it right. If I'm going to give him a plug, I should get his name right. And I apologize for that. But he was talking about the shelter component of it being lagging. He believes that inflation is lower than we think. And by the way, I side with him more than I side with you guys. And I have a shit ton of respect for you guys, as you both know. But I think the inflation part of the episode is mostly over. But what are we going to start talking? Can the stock market rally if the immediate narrative changes to, it's just high because of shelter, it's just high because of this? If it comes in hot, are we falling out of bed?
Well, because look, that if it comes in hot because it's going to be energy, which it's going to be, don't forget, that affects transportation, so it affects everything, right? It costs these guys more money to move the food around. So what do? They raise prices on the food level. This is the stuff that affects you and me every day, because you have to pay for food every day. You got to pay for energy. You got to pay utilities. That's the stuff. I don't care if televisions are going down in value, because A, you can't eat them, and B, you don't buy them every day. The same way you do, you fill up your car with gas, right? Or you bring it over and you try to plug it in, but that takes energy too, right? And then you got to go to the supermarket and you got to go pay your utility bill. So that's where I think you're going to see it, right? I'd love to be in your camp and go, oh no, it's getting better. I just don't see it.
I have a hard time figuring out how shelter comes down. So we know that the home builders can't build enough to make up for the existing homeowners that are not going to sell, because they have a 2.5%, 3% mortgage. Now they got to have a 7% mortgage. So without the Fed actually starting to cut, I don't know how shelter comes down. Maybe it stabilizes, but down. And again, we're going to have the base effects on shelter, obviously, because there was a huge spike. But that's the part of it I'm struggling with. And I talked to Shayna Orchak-Sissel about it on our other show. And she said there's virtually, you know what, I shouldn't quote her on this because I don't know the exact quote, but she was the one who put the idea into my head, let's just say that way, that if you can't move houses, then it drives people who are looking for homes, who can't afford the new homes. And because the rates, so the rates being up also affect the home builders, right? Because they can't absorb as much of it by lowering their costs and taking on some of that. How do you get shelter to come down, Kenny?
Well, so the only way I think you're going to start to see it, because at 7.5% or 7.25% mortgages, people are having more of a difficult time. And so if there's houses on the market, they really want to sell. That's when you're going to start to see the prices come down in the existing home sales, right? In the new home sales, don't forget, a lot of these builders have their own financing arms built within, right? They can also offer you free upgrades. That's how they draw you in, which is why we've seen new home sales up and existing home sales are lower month after month. Because when you buy an existing home, you're buying it as is. You've got to renovate it. You got to update it. You got to do everything. If you go and take your wife and go look at a new home or new development, it's outfitted beautifully. It's staged beautifully. And when you come in and they go, well, rates have gone up, but we can buy down the rate because we've got our own financing arm, and we can upgrade your kitchen cabinets, and we can give you better tile, all for the same price. And so, your wife goes, oh my God, I have to have this house. And so therefore you end up buying the new home and not the existing home. So the existing homes that are out there are going to come under pressure first. because those people are going to want to move them.
Okay, I think you guys are both missing something, and I want you both to comment on it, starting with you, Kenny. The labor data we saw on the first, I thought was shit. Yes, great, we had a beat on the headline, and every month for the past 7 has been revised lower, including June, which was revised from 210 to 105, half of what it was. As soon as we start seeing breakup in the labor market, I just spoke to a friend of mine as a headhunter at a reunion on Saturday. She said, now we are just getting calls from companies to help them shed employees, not to find employees right now. Kenny, is the labor market the key to supply coming to the market? Meaning people can't afford their mortgage payments anymore. They got hit the bid.
Well, I think that's going to be one of the issues that's going to cause supply to come to the market. If people lose their job and can't afford it, they're either going to stay there and let the foreclosure process take place, which is like a year and a half, and maybe they think they'll be able to, something will happen within a year and a half, and then they won't lose their house. But if they're really panicked about it, or they get a job in another part of the country, yes, and that's going to force a lot of these houses to come to the market, and I think they'll come at better prices, right? Because they're going to want to move. They're not going to stay. They don't have the time or the ability to sit there and kind of wait it out. They have to make a move.
Bobby, so are we seeing here, when you look at the great financial crisis, 2007, 2008, whatever we put the date on it, are we looking at a structural undersupply of homes? Is that one of the reasons that people aren't shedding, that these rate hikes are not having efficacy in breaking up the housing market like they were intended to?
I think yes to that. So you do have a similar dynamic going on in people that have rental properties, to where the cost of renting those things out, they're sitting empty longer than they used to. And also them raising their rents, they can only raise them to a certain level, and then they just sit empty. And that's a bigger cost than actually lowering the rent by a month or two. But from that perspective, to Kenny's point, the people who have to dump their houses have to live somewhere. And here's the part of it that kind of offsets what you said, I think, Jimmy. UPS drivers, $170,000 a year to deliver packages. 2 days, we're recording 2 days away from the UAW's deadline to go on strike for what? A 36-hour work week. And they just dropped from 32% pay raise to 33, or I'm sorry, to 30.
46 they were at.
46 to 33. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you're both
These are
wrong.
massive,
40 to
massive
36.
numbers.
So anyway, go on.
But from really high to high.
Right.
Yeah,
These
right.
are massive, massive numbers that are going to go into the wage components. Small businesses suffering, these larger businesses giving in to the wage increases that will then come out in the back end in inflation. And this is the parts that worry me.
Okay, and so I agree with you, but let me ask you a question. Where are you seeing rental properties sitting on the market unrentable? Because I'm not seeing that down here in Florida, and I'm not seeing it in New York City, right? You can't, they go, the minute they come on the market, they go, and you're not talking about cheap rents.
No,
you're
I'm not
talking
seeing
about
it
$4,000 and $5,000 a month for
I'm not
a
seeing it
rental.
on the other side of Florida either, which is where I live. I live on the opposite coast that Kenny does. I'm not seeing it here. Where I'm seeing it is in the future, because there will not be enough of a supply of homes, in my opinion, at these interest rates for people to buy them. So then people are going to be forced to go to rents. But at the same time, Jimmy's right about jobs. We are starting to soften in jobs.
Correct.
So there's going to be a point coming where people just can't afford the rents, and they're stuck where they're stuck. And that's it. And I think, as parents of older kids, Jimmy, your kids are pretty much gone. Kenny, I don't even know how many kids you have, but I assume they're pretty much, are they pretty much gone, or they're still at home? 36
and 33.
So you're talking about kids in their 20s. I saw a weird social media post where a girl said, I'm a 29-year-old teenager, and my parents are walking me through my first job commute. She's 29, and she got to commute to her first job, and they're walking her through it because she still lives at home. Right. And there's going to be more and more and more of that. So I think this is going to happen. And the timing of it is what concerns me, guys. And Jimmy, to your point, let me ask you this. You mentioned the 7 months in a row, the jobs numbers are pushed lower and lower each month. Manufacturing is now in net layoffs for 4 months. And manufacturing isn't big here, but it's a canary in a coal mine for the jobs market here, right? Take that and line that up against 4.3 or 4.5 inflation. Am I wrong in saying that Jerome Powell missed the opportunity to say we would accept a little bit more inflation, which he basically said no to that in Jackson Hole? First Kenny, then Jimmy.
Yeah, but I think I'm with you that he's going to have to acknowledge a 3% number instead of a 2% number. Because listen, Larry Summers think that unemployment has to have a 5 handle on it in order for them to get inflation down to 2%. I don't think it's going there. So I think Jay Powell and the Fed's going to recognize that they've got to accept a 3% inflation rate versus a 2%.
I'm with you completely. But Kenny, here's the question then. We're talking about all this shit. What's the bull case for stocks? Is there a bull case at all if inflation comes in hotter tomorrow? Or is it only bear? Is the only bull case with inflation dissipating?
I think the broader rally is going to come under pressure, but then I think you'll find money moving into those very underappreciated kind of big, boring sectors, right? Staples, healthcare, the big mega cap U.S. names that are boring to own, but they're in the 3 to 5% dividend payer. It's Johnson and Johnson, it's Procter and Gamble, it's Coke. Those aren't sexy names. That's not AI. But you know what? In an unsettled environment, that is a place where people are going to find shelter. So utilities, which I understand will respond to interest rates, they're down 10%. They're starting to catch a bit. They were down 13% at the beginning of the week. They've rallied back since. They're down 10% now because you got some money finding value in that place. But I do think you'll see money come out of the growth names, certainly. You'll see names like Apple and Amazon get dislocated for no other reason than people are locking in profits and taking money off, which creates a great opportunity for the long-term investor if it just sits back. Because the fundamentals at Apple haven't changed. It's just people are using it like an ATM to raise cash very quickly.
I want to get a little off track if I could. Could I do this, Jimmy?
Sure, no doubt.
Kenny, we've been on now for about 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And I don't see that you've changed at all. And the other day on Twitter, somebody said, Kenny, you used to be great, but now you're just a shill for the Republicans and you've changed a lot. I don't think he's changed. Kenny, how have you changed?
You know what? I saw that same tweet and I scratched my head and I go, I don't think that's true at all. I mean, I don't think I've become a shill or whatever the word is. I don't think I've become that at all. I think I'm exactly the same person I was. I'm probably a little bit better looking. I mean, look at this beard. I just had it.
I think so too. You do get better looking as you get older. The little gray thing, like Art Hogan, Michael Farr, Kenny Pocari, they play the gray thing so perfectly. I'm jealous as shit. Anyway, keep going. I didn't mean to stop you.
Kenny's the Amarone of that group. I mean, he is the good fine wine of that group.
Yeah. But listen, I agree with you. I don't know where that came from. I don't think I have. I don't think I've changed at all.
I know where it came from. Things have gotten so damn crazy that people who are for individual liberties and lean libertarian start to seem like we're crazy, right, despite the fact that, if anything, I'm slightly further left than I was 25, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
I care more about gay rights, shit like that.
Right.
I'm further left, and they paint us like we're crazy white right-wing liberals. It's nonsense, and we just have to – I don't even like the Republicans, and I make that point all the time. I vote against Democrats. There's an enormous difference. I think their policies are bad. Bobby.
Right. I'm going to make an observation about both of you because I read both of your Twitter specifically religiously. And both of you have complained about government spending under all administrations since I've been following you guys. Yeah. Right, left, center, doesn't matter. Both of you have said government's too big, regardless who was making it big. Whether it was Trump, whether it was Obama, whether it was Bush 2, didn't matter. Both of you guys have said that. And I've been standing next to you, Jimmy, on CNBC, and I've been half of the screen with Kenny on CNBC where you've said the exact same thing. So anybody listening to this that thinks either one of these guys have changed, I've changed, I'm angrier.
Yeah, but you know what happens? People hear what they want to hear versus what you're saying, right? And someone that's way left suddenly thinks that, because I'm like Jimmy. Listen, I have 2 daughters. I am center, maybe slightly right fiscally, but left of center socially, right? I spent a lot of years in New York. I get it. I understand the need for social programs. So I am to the left of center on some social programs. Not way left, not like crazy left, throw the money down the toilet, not that far left. But I find it amazing that when you try to have these conversations, some guy screamed at me the other day on Twitter, you probably saw it, because, he didn't like my opinion. I said, so wait a minute. So now you're calling me out because you don't like my opinion. Are we not here to have a robust conversation so both sides can discuss and have a conversation? Because if we are, I'm happy to have it. But if that's what you're here for, go away. I'm not interested, right? I'm happy to have an ongoing conversation with you. But I'm not gonna sit here and think the way you tell me to think, because that's what I'm supposed to do.
So this leads me to an actual question for both of you guys. We're almost a year away, right, from the election, the one that everybody cares about, that probably matters the least in the grand scheme of things. But what do you guys think this has any effect on the Federal Reserve going into the election, and any effect on markets? I don't care who answers first.
Can you go? Because I got a very strong opinion.
So first of all, I don't think Trump or Biden is going to be the candidate in November. Let's just put that on the table.
Wow.
I just don't think either one of them are going to be the candidate. I think they're going to get Biden out due to health reasons, and I think they're going to wait until the convention to do it. This way, they don't have to go through a primary process and do all that. I think the superdelegates on the Democratic side want to wait until the last minute, and then they're going to install someone who I think is going to be Gavin Newsom. And then they're going to have to figure out what to do with Kamala, because, then there'll be an uproar because she's a woman and she's a minority. And what do you mean she needs to be president? She can't be president. Are you kidding me? I don't think anyone in their right mind thinks that she can be president. But on the other side, I think there's going to be Trump exhaustion. I think people are going to feel bad he's indicted and all that stuff. I get it. I think they're treating him like shit, and they should be all ashamed of themselves. But in the end, I think that the country's trying to move away from 80-year-old white guys that are just, way too much baggage and not enough foresight. And I think there's a dark horse on the Republican side, and I'm not sure that he's shown his face yet. I'd like to say it's going to be Youngkin from Virginia, but he was very coy, right? If he's going to announce, he's going to announce pretty damn quick. He can't wait much longer.
You know who I really am starting to like, and everybody tells me how stupid I am because she's a neocon and she's pro-military, and you know exactly what I'm saying because I said
know
she.
What you're saying.
Nikki Haley.
But is it? And you, Bobby, you've known me for many, many years. Yep. Do I like her so much just because I want the left to be like so confused? You know what I mean? How are they going to attack her?
What I know about you, Jimmy is the guy who would, if he was your roommate, he'd cut your box spring open in the middle of summer and pour tuna in there and then tape it up and leave you wondering what the hell's going on for the next 3 months while your room smelled like dead fish. He's the guy who would do that. So that's sort of no, I think you actually liked her performance in the debate. I think you liked what she said about her sort of her international policy experience. I think you like that. And I think it's a critical part of the next president's resume is how they would handle a sort of, geopolitics and, geopolitics as a general rule. Yeah. I don't know that it's as important, quite frankly, because, we've obviously had several presidents that have had no
experience,
national security, geopolitical experience.
Or any experience for at least one of them. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Obama.
Or any experience
with state senator.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And, I think you guys know this. I'm still a fan of Vivek Ramaswamy. There's a lot to like about him in my view, a lot of which I wouldn't say on a recording, simply because it's not the proper forum to explain myself. But no, Jimmy, I don't think you like it just to like Nikki Haley to piss off the left. I think she's got a lot of qualities for people to like. I don't think she's electable, quite frankly.
So listen, to your point about Vivek Ramaswamy, I like him. He calls it out the way it is. He's not afraid to stand up and say, there are two genders. There's a mother and a father. There's this, there's that, there's right. All the stuff that everyone wants to say, he just says it. And I think he says it in a way that is real. It's the way that everybody is in the back of their mind. They're thinking it, but God forbid, nobody wants to say it. He just says it. Now, do I think he's electable at 38 years old? I don't think he's going to be electable, but he's certainly going to set himself up for a cabinet position or something like that, right? Because I do agree. I do like most of the stuff. I was a little bit disappointed on his foreign policy stuff at the debate. I was like, she was much better on foreign policy.
Yeah, it was weak.
Sure. Yeah. Then for sure she was much better, but she has that experience.
He does.
Yeah. So again, before because I want to go to oil right now, but to put a bow on this one, I will vote for whoever runs against the Democrats. I don't like the Republicans particularly. I think the Democrats' economic policy is disastrous. It's toxic. I think there's so many things that they're doing that are incorrect. I hope that's not a stupid way to think about it. I don't care particularly who is. I mean, you guys are probably feeling the same way. Bobby, what do you think?
Can I throw out one more political question for you guys? Are you guys?
It is a fun topic.
Are you guys just going to unfriend me for liking Robert F. Kennedy Jr.?
Absolutely not.
I don't hate
Absolutely
him.
not.
I,
I don't hate
just
him
think,
either.
listen, he's honest about his traditional liberal democratic policies.
Yeah.
He's honest about them. You know, he questions sort of the machine. He reminds me of a 60s, 70s liberal Democrat.
Right.
And
And he's in
I
good
like
shape,
the
by the way.
honesty of it.
He's in good
What's that?
physical shape, by the way.
Damn
Yes, he
straight he is.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's in very good physical shape. So, you know, I know. I actually like Robert Kennedy too. And I think the Democrats are doing themselves a disservice because they're keeping him at bay. They're not allowing, you know, they're paying no attention to him. And,
they're the only attention they're going to pay to him is to keep him out of a debate. You said before they're going to do it at the convention because they don't want to have a debate.
That's exactly right.
And they don't want to
at the convention, they're going to keep him out of there too. And I think that's when they're going to put Newsom in. I really do. It's going to be. I think they're going to put Newsom in.
And you make
which
me
would be a disaster.
Fall out
by
this
the way.
window and jump. Yeah, exactly. That guy's a clown. And he's talking yesterday about we got a lot of things wrong. We got most things wrong with the pandemic. Yeah, you got things wrong while people were shouting at you. This is what you're getting wrong. There's two different kinds of idiots or corrupt or whatever the hell you want to call it. And he's the worst kind. But
That's
anyway,
one of the best tweets of the year, by the way, Jimmy. I'm reading what you said about his apology.
Yeah, how about
by the way,
just tell you. Yeah.
Jimmy, I got to tell you something. Every time I read your tweets, I just smile because it's the way you say it. It's
so much
it's the tone because you can hear him. And even though you're reading it, you can hear him saying it.
I
and
know,
it makes me laugh I want to call you every time I see your tweets because I go, Jimmy, I love you. I love the way you do it.
Sometimes I read his Twitter in bed and I feel weird because it's like he's in bed with me.
My late father used to always tell me, hey, nobody likes a smartass. If he was alive, he'd be like, Dad, 50,000 people seem to like a smartass, okay? You were wrong, Dad, if you're listening.
I think you're so I love when I read your tweets. I think to myself, how the fuck did he come up with the? It's just the way you say it. It's like the rhetorical question you ask. I think to myself, how did he come up with that?
Do you know how many direct face punches I've taken in my entire life? I can count about 25 offhand, and probably the 25 made me forget the other 25. Yeah. But anyway, let's talk about oil. Today was a huge day
traded
in oil.
At $90.
Traded at $90. It broke out of that little consolidation pattern for the last couple of days. Yeah. I have been beating this oil drum for 6 months. Yeah. I've been saying that was the place to be. I still think it's the place to be. I think that our friends in OPEC and in Russia are going to tighten the screws to us because they were not happy at all that we sold the SPR. I actually think it is inflationary imbalance. I don't think it's inflationary as other people think because I think it pulls money out of people's pockets at the pump and is going to be part of the ingredients that cause the recession coming up. The two-part question, Kenny, do you think it's still good to be in oil and the oil names?
Yeah.
You mentioned utilities, and I was thinking dividends, which means to me that rates may have topped out, and you think maybe get some yield too. Thoughts on the energy sector?
No, I absolutely, because I'm with you. I've been pushing utility in my notes. I like energy. I like the space. I like the big names in energy. I like Exxon and Halliburton, Schlumberger and Chevron. Those are the kind of names I like, and I think you need to be there. Because like you, I think the Saudis and OPEC Plus and Russia is going to continue to tighten the screws. And, 80 is where they love to see it. 90, they're in love with it. And anywhere above 95, they're all happy, which is where I think going into the year end, which is where they want to push it. And by the way, the Farmer's Almanac this year suggests that we are going to get a vicious winter in the Northeast. Cold, which is only going to cause energy prices to go even higher.
Kenny, before I comment on crude, is that a good predictor? I've had people ask me in the past how accurate the Farmer's Almanac is.
I think it's a very good predictor. Yeah, I think it's a very good predictor.
I have no data on that at all. I got long crude oil the Thursday, the end of August, the 31st. And my target on crude oil has been basically a 2-target trade for me, but 91 is basically the target. It's actually 91.35, but when you get to a round number, I'm fine with giving the cents back. Yeah. I don't think we initially get much higher than that. And there's a couple of fundamental reasons, but they're mostly technical reasons. Fundamental reasons is if you looked at the monthly oil market report from OPEC, Saudi Arabia cut in August 88,000 barrels, about what promised, right? But Nigeria and Iran were up 113,000 barrels. So their actual production for OPEC was up in August from July by about 24 1,000 barrels a day. So they actually increased production as a cabal. Okay. The second part of it for me in the short term is Libya's oil production, which has been hurt by Storm Daniel. I should say they're oil exporting. The production's still there, but they have 4 ports shut down, which is part of the bid that we got. Again, we're recording on Tuesday. We had an up 2% day today in WTI, and it's part of that bid. So I suspect when those things bleed through to the market, there's always what they're saying the production is versus what the production actually is, where the only place they sort of match up is in the U.S., right? Everywhere else are kind of off a little bit. But I think as we get Goldman Sachs calling for $107 a barrel, they usually call me before their forecast, but they didn't this time. I think that they're going to be right, but I think it's a ways off. But I think the oil names will not get hurt by any pullback. That's why I think Kenny's dead on about that sector. And
listen, I also think, I don't care what you say about China. I think China is a big buyer of oil.
Their actual numbers last month were about 12% higher than the previous month.
Right. So everyone goes, oh, China economy is slowing down and they're all worried about China. That might be true, but they are fucking, stockpiling oil. They're either buying it, they're doing whatever they're doing with it. They are stockpiling it. They are a big buyer of oil.
Do you worry, Kenny, about the SPR, where it is?
Yeah, of course I do, because it's at 40-year lows and there's 4 or 5 days left in the SPR, I think, of what I read, versus the 90 days that there should be if the thing were completely full, right? And so when are they going to start to fill it? When are they really? They had an opportunity when oil was trading down at between 70 and 65 for a good 3 or 4, maybe 1 or 2 weeks, right? Where it was trading in that range where they had an opportunity to buy it. They didn't. Now it's trading up $30 from there. Are they going to start buying it up here?
Jimmy, do you think that has anything to do with us giving back the $6 billion to the Iranian mullahs that we had frozen? Hey, please don't stop with the oil and just kind of wait till we refill it. I don't know. That's a conspiracy theory of my own making.
By the way, I like conspiracy theories. And it's a good theory. I don't have anything to back it up. But God, they called me conspiracy theory for 30 years, and I'm probably about 25-1. So same with you guys on our conspiracy theories. Yeah. I told my buddy who called me a conspiracy theory for literally a month. I'd call him every week and go, "Oh, Jeffrey Epstein's still alive, huh? Jeffrey Epstein's still alive, huh? Yeah. Oh, he's not alive anymore, is he? Yeah, there's my conspiracy theory." Okay.
And honestly, guys, I don't want this whole podcast to just drop into this. I'm not a particularly big fan of Donald Trump as a human being, but the fact that he's getting hit with these things, and the people call this whataboutism, but the fact that he's getting hit with this stuff and not one Jeffrey Epstein client is any kind of trouble at all. And they know who they are. It's just absurd to me.
I'm just waiting for the list to come out. It's going to come out at some point. I mean, it has to come out at some point, right? Because everyone knows it exists.
This has been remember when the FBI first started? So this is the kind of the reverse of it. Meyer Lansky and the mob had pictures of J. Edgar Hoover. It's not a theory. It's not a conspiracy.
Yeah, true.
They knew about his secret life, and they held it over his head forever. My point is, within the area of intelligence agency, it goes both ways. To have the dirt on someone gives you the power. Our intelligence agencies, we know that they collect dirt on people to use at a later date. And if they have the dirt, if all these elite people, it's guys like us that go to prison, instead of those guys don't go to prison because they just hold out the dirt on them until they need a favor, and they call it in saying, "Hey, I got something. I think you'll want to say yes to this," and they explain why. So I don't think anyone's ever going to jail. I think that the horses are out of the barn, or whatever stupid expression you can use. I think the intelligence agencies have more power than the government does, than any of us. Am I crazy, Kenny?
No, you're not. I just am dying to see who the people are.
Same. Yeah, no doubt about it.
I want to see Bill Clinton's name on that list. I want to see a bunch of names on that list.
If Donald Trump's name on those, I don't care. I want to see anyone's names on that list. Go straight to hell. Not only would I like to see him rot in jail, I'd like to punch him in the face. These are bad crimes we're talking about.
No doubt.
This is a big deal. Bobby, what do you got?
Yeah. I want to ask you, Kenny, your company, okay, Case Capital Advisors. You guys are wealth advisors, right?
Case Capital is my consulting firm, right? So I'm chief market strategy at a wealth advisor called Slatestone Wealth, which is located in Jupiter, Florida. Case is when I left the floor of the New York Stock Exchange and I moved to Florida. I started a consulting business But Case itself is not the RIA or the wealth manager, right?
Okay.
I use that for my public speaking stuff, any consulting stuff that I do with either BDs or fintechs and that. But my wealth management is Slate Stone Wealth, where I'm the chief market strategist.
Okay, so as a wealth advisor, wealth manager, and consultant, and this for you too, Jimmy, as always, I can't find a reason to get rid of any physical gold I have. As a matter of fact, I'm still going to be accumulating.
Yeah.
Do you guys see, and again, this is something that I think not only could just break out by the end of this year, beginning of next year, but could be at a level that we've never seen in the next 5 years. It could be 5 digits in my view. Do you guys think I'm nuts? Is there anything behind that? Or Kenny, Jimmy, will you tell people that ask you, hey, should I buy gold? Is it just an emphatic yes, or is it a yes, maybe?
Kenny, you go first because I got a strong answer for this.
No, I like gold, right? I mean, now I like gold as an investor. Like if you're talking about gold mining stocks and that kind of stuff, physical gold. The only physical gold that I own is jewelry that I buy my wife, a couple of Krugerrands and that stuff. But I don't buy physical gold. But
bullshit. You got pinky rings. I'm sure you got all of it, right?
Well, okay, but I mean, I'm not buying gold.
You're such a racist.
Saying, right? But I think you have to have gold. I think you have to have gold in some form. And it's funny you say that because I was just talking to my brother a couple of weeks ago, and he and his wife went out and actually bought gold, and they put it away in the safe deposit box, like physical gold, and put it away in the safe deposit box because he agrees he's in your camp.
So here's what I like about gold lately, and I have physical gold. And please, any of you guys hear this and want to come get it, I have guard dogs, I have guns. If you can get it, my hat is off to you. Here's the point: is that over the last couple months, the dollar had a screaming rally, a relentless rally. Gold held in pretty good. Real yields are up, usually, which is the death knell for gold. Gold's held up pretty well despite that too. I think if all of a sudden that situation reverses, where real yields are not still positive, where the dollar starts to fall because of the pivot. My speech in New Orleans on November 1st, Thursday night, I already have the title of it. It's called Preparing for the Pivot, a deep dive into the Federal Reserve and how it may affect real assets. That's going to be my speech on November 1st in New Orleans. I think gold is a big deal, and because it hasn't broken. Kenny, comment on that.
Yeah, and I agree with you because the dollar has rallied significantly, and gold's come off. It was trading where? 2,100,
sure.
Close to 2,100. It's trading at 1950. It's trading at 1950, and it's kind of held there. Tested down to 1910, and it's bounced back, and it's holding in there. Even as the dollar is now trading at recent highs, it's still holding in. So, no, I like gold. And by the way, where are you speaking on Thursday?
No, Thursday, November 1st, if that's the right date, in New Orleans at the New Orleans Investment Conference being held at the Hilton Riverside. It's the 4th year in a row I've been down there. It's a gas. It's it's a lot of hard money people, a lot of gold miners sponsor it. Brent Johnson will be there. Jim Grant will be there. Dave Collum, you guys know Dave, right?
And so do you stand up there with PowerPoints and charts and all that shit, or do you just talk?
No, I stand up there with PowerPoints. It makes it look a little more professional. I'd rather just stand up there and talk.
So who creates your PowerPoints for you?
My daughter, Abby.
I love that answer.
Because listen, that's great. Because honestly, I wouldn't know how to make a PowerPoint to start, and so I don't. But what I do is whenever I go speak, you know me, I speak like I just speak, right? I don't have all these charts up there because people that speak in front of me have the charts and the PowerPoints. They flip through it, and I see people in the audience, just kind of glaze over. I just talk and I move back and forth, and I become, you know what I mean? Well, I don't use any charts, and I don't make any apologies about it. But I'm happy to talk. If someone has a specific question, I'm happy to talk about it. But I can't point to a chart.
Real funny thing. Last January, I spoke at a semiconductor conference in Miami, Florida. There was 12 speakers. And afterwards, all the people who were in attendance were to rate the 12 speakers. And I finished second place of the 12 speakers by one vote. The guy who beat me was my damn brother, who was also speaking at the same conference. And I still think he rigged it somehow. But whatever. Bobby, what do you got?
Yeah, I want to go back to gold before we let Kenny go. And the reason that I like physical gold is because regardless of what we think, right now the CME Fed Watch Tool has the first even possibility of a rate cut moved out to June. We've seen it as recently as September of this year. And then it just keeps moving out. The market keeps adjusting as time goes forward, as it tends to do. And ever since we've had an activist Fed for the most part, I mean, gold's up 80% in the last 10 years, 83, 84, something like that, up like over 400% since 2010, right? And people think gold's an inflation hedge. And one of the questions I got from somebody today, they called me up. One of our clients called up and said, look, you think crude oil is going to have a little bit of an effect on inflation. Kenny thinks that too. Should I buy gold because it's an inflation hedge? No, it's not. What gold is sort of a holy trinity or an unholy trinity of inflation, because gold only is an inflation hedge when inflation is low and the economy is slow and the Fed is cutting rates in order to spur the economy and spur inflation. That's when gold rallies. And I think we all believe that the Fed will not stop being an activist Fed. So when they come back in and buy bonds and cut rates, there goes gold. That's kind of the way I look.
Right.
When do you think that happens?
I don't think it happens now until I think it's going to be late summer of 2024, if it even happens then.
I think it might be as long as 2025.
But it is a presidential election year next year, which is why I think it'll happen around or right before the election. I don't think they're going to wait to go after. I think there'll be too much pressure that, unless inflation doesn't stop, I think it'd be the summertime, late summer of 2025.
So who is it? Is it Hutchinson? He's
Asa
a
Hutchinson,
right?
Hutchinson?
So at Zero Hedge had a headline that said Hutchinson says that Jay Powell should be fired for having rates so high. And I'm thinking to myself, Jay Powell should be fired for not acting quicker when that June 2021 CPI was already over 5%. Right. And he said transitory and hit the gas.
Right.
I mean, these congressmen, even when they say something that I agree with, their reasoning is asinine. They're like the dumbest bunch of people I've ever seen in my life.
Listen, remember when inflation was 1.4%, 1.6%, all those months and those years, and Jay Powell said, the minute we go over 2%, that's going to be the signal. That's when we're going to start to raise rates. And then it went over 2% in, I think it was April or May of 21. And that's what he kept saying. It's transitory. And it went straight up to 9.5%. Now, he also had a job to protect, right? Because his job was on the line. He needed to protect his job, which is why he didn't start sooner, right? So
yeah, that's the Mel Brooks quote. Gentlemen, we got to protect our phony baloney jobs here. Bobby, what do you got?
I got nothing. We got 1 minute left with Kenny. Kenny, do you want to do a quick recipe real quick for everybody wants?
Oh my God, a quick recipe! You're killing me.
Throw one out. Yeah. You got one. Come on.
So I forget what was the last one I threw.
Perfect ossobuco. Give me a perfect ossobuco.
Listen, so here's how I make the ossobuco. Right, you take the veal shank. I season them, and I season them in a seasoned flour, right? So salt and pepper in the flour. I dredge the ossobuco in the flour. I put it in a big pot, and I fry it in oil so I get nice and brown on all sides. I slice up the onions, the carrots, the celery, and the garlic. In the bottom of this big baking dish, I just line it with the veal that I brown. I put the veal in first in the bottom of the big aluminum pan, and then I take the raw vegetables and I lay it right on top. Then I go back to the pan that I brown the meat in, and I add half a can of tomato paste. I add a quarter of a bottle, maybe a half a bottle of red wine, and I add a thing of beef broth. I bring it all to a boil. I let the alcohol burn away off the wine. I let the tomato paste, melt in the thing, and then I pour that whole thing over the baking dish. It's got all the vegetables and you want it to bathe. You don't want it to be soaking. You just want enough in there that the veal shanks are bathing in the juice, right? Seal it really tight with tinfoil and put it in the oven, 325, but it's got to stay in the oven now for 5 hours, right? The longer it stays in the oven, the better it's going to be, but keep it tight, because it's the steam that'll cook the vegetables and make them soft, and then create the veal will fall off the bone.
Bobby, last question for you.
Yeah.
If you had to pick between a beautiful dinner of ossobuco or a braciole, what's your favorite?
I'm sorry, I go braciole. I'm an immigrant. I'm a poor immigrant. Ossobuco is too expensive for us back in the day.
I love them both. Next time we're going to get a good braciole recipe. My mom made a braciole.
Listen, the next time we do this, I want to do this at your restaurant. We're going to bring all the cameras out there. We're going to sit down. We're going to do this at your restaurant. I know I have to invite myself out there, but I'm inviting myself out there. Bobby and I will fly up from Florida. We're going to come in there. We're going to take the place over.
We're
You're
going to turn it
actually,
into
you're gonna sell
Brantolinos.
tickets. You should sell tickets to this, and we'll be right in the middle of the dining room. We'll have people all around us. We'll be having this conversation.
Jimmy, for 1 hour only, it's going to be Brantolinos of Palatine Hill.
Right, exactly. All right.
All right, sweetheart, I got to
run.
jump.
This has been too much fun. See you, Kenny.